Pakistan made headlines for all the wrong reasons once again when the Financial Action Task Force decided against removing the country from its grey list.
Pakistan remains on our increased monitoring list, the so-called grey list.
So what does this mean and what lies ahead for Pakistan? For starters, let's go through what the Financial Action Task Force, aka the FATF, actually means. The organization's official website says it's a global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog which sets international standards that aim to prevent these illegal activities and the harm they cause to society. So basically, it's an anti-corruption and anti-terrorism body that has certain measures in place to combat organized crime, illegal drug dealings, fundings for weapons of mass destruction, and so on. So the FATF maintains two lists for countries that do not comply with these guidelines. The blacklist, which includes countries that are deemed non-cooperative in their objectives, such as Iran and North Korea, and the grey list, which names 17 countries that are deemed safe haven for terror funding and money laundering, including Pakistan, which entered the list for the first time in 2008, then in 2012, and then again in 2018. The country's repeated failures to fulfill the FATF obligations had placed Pakistan under immense international pressure. But in this October's plenary session, it was concluded that despite Pakistan's progress, it still has a long way to go before getting itself off the grey list.
The plenary recognized that Pakistan has made progress. The government has now completed 21 of 27 items of its action plan.
One of the most important obligations that Pakistan has failed to fulfill is the prosecution of UN-designated terrorists such as Masood Azhar, chief of the Sunni extremist group Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hafiz Saeed, one of the founders of another militant group Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jamaat-ud-Dawa, and the LET's Supreme Commander of Operations Zakir Rahman Lakhdhi, all of whom continue to operate freely on Pakistan's soil. And that's not all. Names of over 4,000 terrorists that Pakistan had listed under the Anti-Terrorism Act in January have now gone missing. So, what next? Well, the FATF has asked Pakistan to fulfill all its remaining recommendations by February 2021. The task force meets for its next review. So you may ask, what if Pakistan fails in its obligations again? Well, there's a real chance of the country getting blacklisted alongside Iran and North Korea, because remember, Pakistan was already on borrowed time. The FATF had asked Pakistan to meet the 27-point action plan by the end of 2019 itself, but the deadline was extended only due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Pakistan was already in the midst of a huge economic crisis, with millions of people struggling with inflation and unemployment, while the COVID-19 pandemic has only served to exacerbate their problems.
The World Bank has also been giving its assessment about the bleak situation that exists and the 0.5% GDP growth for Pakistan.
Because of the effects of the economic slowdown, my worry is poverty and hunger. That worries me much more right now.
With an estimated 10 million more Pakistanis facing poverty in the next few years, the wolf is already at the door, and getting blacklisted by the FATF would culminate in economic sanctions that can lead to currency devaluations, a fall in stock market, stopping of all international aid, trade barriers, or even civil unrest. It would just be the straw that breaks the camel's back.